Every creature and being in this world tells its own story, from its beginning, through its middle, to its end. But what story does the snail tell us? This is the storytelling of a snail. Chapter 1. The value of all stories. It's funny the way we value life. It's as if we treat it as a leaderboard, a ranking system, one where we are at the top, dogs and cats and domestic animals below that, and then all of the other creatures right at the bottom. But where does the snail fit on that list? Ask yourself, have you ever stepped on a snail in your time on this earth? And if so, what did you feel after it? Did you brush it off like it was nothing? That maybe it was the snail that got in your way, and it's the snail's fault for its more than sour ending? Or possibly, you screamed out in horror that you've just taken a life. Even though the majority of humans wouldn't value a snail's life as a valuable life, it is still a living being, is it not? It was a creature living its own story, and you were the one who ended that snail's story. In that case, you were the villain, the antagonist, and the snail was the hero, the protagonist, even though you may see yourself as the protagonist. As we all get so caught up in living our own stories that we forget everyone else, every other living thing in this earthly realm is also living its own story, where they are the protagonist, and not us. Chapter 2. Rushing the chapters of life. Life moves so fast sometimes that we end up taking the good times for granted. We rush to the next thing or the next chapter as if our lives depended on it. We rarely take our time and truly resonate in the moment. It's like we're living for the future rather than living for the present moment, for the now, when in truth, now is all that matters. Chapter 3. The pace of the story. The snail's story is told at the same pace from beginning to middle to end. It never falters. It never speeds up to make that next memory or to experience that new exciting thing like we humans do all the time, because we are already bored of the last. Even though it was only mere moments ago, we are already craving that next exciting thing in our lives. But in this case, the way the snail's story is told and mapped out is like a masterpiece of art, painted by a painter who doesn't care what's coming next. No, he just lets the brush and the paints take him along for the journey, letting the story be told in its own time and not by force or by feeling, letting the passion build that story, build that painting, build that piece of art. Instead of feeling you have to rush that bit, or that bit's bad, I have to restart this. If you do that, then the story becomes fragmented. It breaks away from the path and leads down a road of spiked vines and rocky ground. Chapter 4. The Eternal Narrator. In all of our lives, whether we like it or not, we all have an eternal narrator, a voice inside of our heads, the one that is constantly batting ideas and thoughts at you, like it were a tennis ball machine, forever shooting tennis balls at you non-stop. This narrator can lead to us questioning our own lives and the story we've been telling with them. Every doubt and anxiety roots itself in our head like a bed of weeds. This narrator swerves our life story from left to right and all around, making you dizzy in the head. At times it can be our worst enemy, and at other times it can be our closest ally. But nevertheless, it interferes in our story one way or another. But what about the snail? Is its story plagued by these mountains of thoughts and doubts and negativity? Does it one day believe with all of its heart that it's a snail, then the next it completely flips on itself and becomes convinced it's actually a slug? No, not at all. The snail's story is a simple, well-written straight line, like a book with a perfect beginning, middle, and end. It makes its way down the bowling alley and ends up hitting all 10 pins at the climax of its story, and then into the arms of snail heaven. Chapter 5. The Simplicity Principle. A snail's story relates to that of Occam's razor, which is a basic rule of thumb that means, when possible, don't overcomplicate it. Or nowadays, most simply known as KISS, which stands for keep it simple, stupid. The snail starts at point A and moves to point B. As it does this, it remains patient, and because it never overcomplicates or overthinks the goal, it will almost always make it to point B. This could simply be broken down to the story of the tortoise and the hare. Slow and steady wins the race. In the same way that story which is told slow and steady with consistent effort can be way more effective than overconfidence and carelessness. Relying on just the journey and letting the story flow as it should, not rushed or sped up or made overcomplicated, no matter what the story's climax and end will be. If the snail ends up eaten or crushed under a person's shoe or with a family of 200 kids, none of it matters if you live your story the way it was meant to be lived. We should just tell our stories. Don't force the story. Don't overcomplicate it, keep it simple, and that's it. This has been the storytelling of a snail.